Immigrant right advocates tell Congress to step up after court declares Daca illegal. A wave of anti-vaccine legislation is sweeping the United States. Islamophobic hate crimes skyrocket in England, Wales, official figures show. IMF urged to unlock $650 billion for poor nations facing unprecedented crises. WHO probing Indian cough syrup after 66 children die in the Gambia. Nobel Peace Prize highlights importance of civil society in conflict. From Washington, D.C., this is the Muslim News on Muslim Network TV. Assalamu alaikum, I'm Hena Zuberi. Our top story tonight. A federal appeals court on Wednesday ruled a program shielding roughly 600,000 young undocumented immigrants from deportation is illegal. Now, progressive advocates are imploring Congress to pass legislation guaranteeing permanent protections for people brought to the United States as children. The three-judge panel's decision allows those already enrolled in the Deferred Action for Childhood Arrivals or DACA program to renew their status. The right-wing U.S. Court of Appeals for the Fifth Circuit affirmed a 2021 lower court ruling that threw out the program's future into jeopardy. The Biden administration has been fighting to register new DACA beneficiaries locked out since last year's injunction. The case now goes back to the federal district court in Houston. This is to consider a new administration policy issued in August to protect the program. The new regulation was intended to go into effect at the end of the month. Hossam Salam, a Palestinian freelance journalist and photographer, said Wednesday the New York Times terminated his contract over social media posts. In the post, Salam expressed support for Palestinian resistance against Israeli occupation. Salam has covered the Gaza Strip since 2018 as a freelance photojournalist for the New York Times. His termination came via an abrupt phone call from the U.S. media outlet, he said. Salam has covered critical events in Gaza. Those include weekly protests at the border fence with Israel and the May 2021 Israeli offensive on the Gaza Strip. Salam said he was told the decision was made based on a report prepared by a Dutch editor for the pro-Israel Honest Reporting website. The editor of that outlet obtained Israeli citizenship 2 years ago. 3 Democratic lawmakers in the U.S. House of Representatives introduced legislation Thursday requiring the removal of critical military assets stationed in Saudi Arabia and the United Arab Emirates. The move comes a day after Riyadh and Abu Dhabi threw their weight behind OPEC's decision to cut the bloc's oil output by 2 million barrels per day starting in November. The decision will raise U.S. oil prices as Democrats head to November's midterm elections with hopes of maintaining hold of both chambers of Congress. There are about 5,000 troops stationed in Saudi Arabia and the UAE. The legislation proposed by Sean Castan, Tom Milanowski, and Susan Wild would put troops from the countries and remove critical air defense systems within 90 days of its passage. The U.S. anti-vaccine movement is gaining strength despite 1 million Americans having died of COVID-19. Public health officials are urging more people to get their new booster shot before an expected winter coronavirus surge. Experts fear the politicized backlash to the COVID-19 vaccines is already fostering skepticism about routine vaccinations such as childhood immunizations and flu shots. Meanwhile, Republican lawmakers have drafted a pile of anti-vaccine mandate bills this year. More than 80 anti-vaccine bills have been introduced in state legislatures, according to experts. Pakistan's President Arif Alvi on Thursday urged leaders of the government and opposition parties to end the ongoing political crises and hold new elections. He was addressing a joint session of the lower and upper chambers in Islamabad. Alvi, a member of the former Prime Minister Imran Khan's party, Pakistan Tehreek-e-Insaf, said the country needs to unite and that political polarization must be addressed. This was the first time the president addressed the parliament since Khan's ouster in April. He said the country is already suffering a serious crisis due to the devastating floods, which killed about 1,700 people and affected more than 33 million people. Alvi also asked members of parliament to strengthen the accountability system. Bangladesh's Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina slammed Burma's military junta Thursday. This was for refusing to cooperate in regional and international efforts to repatriate Rohingya refugees. Hasina made the accusation during a media briefing in Bangladesh's capital Daca, highlighting her recent visit to the US for the United Nations General Assembly. Hasina said Bangladesh has taken bilateral, trilateral, and multilateral initiatives to repatriate the Rohingya with safety and dignity to their home country. But she said the Burmese government's lack of political will has stalled the sustainable repatriation of the Rohingya. Bangladesh now hosts more than 1.2 million persecuted Rohingya in 34 overcrowded makeshift camps in Cox's Bazar, a southern tourism hub and border district. The refugees fled a brutal military genocide in Burma's Rakhine state in August 2017. Islamophobic hate crimes rising in England and Wales. Details come after the break. Stay tuned and we'll be right back after these messages.
If I could be you, and you could be me for just 1 hour. Walk a mile in my shoes. Walk a mile in my shoes.
Assalamu alaikum. This is Abdul Malik Mujahid. Muslims get bombarded with negative news, so good things which we do remain unknown. For example, do you know that Muslim Americans helped stop the genocide in Bosnia? Recently, Muslim Americans defeated Apple, Coca-Cola, Nike, and their lobbies to get a law passed through Congress about Uyghurs. Do you also know that it were Muslim Americans who work hard and smart to block Modi from entering the United States for 10 years? Yes, Alhamdulillah. All of that is your credit. Let's keep doing the good thing. Alhamdulillah, 3 achievers of our community are coming to Chicago to help strengthen Justice for All. Justice for All is a human rights organization run by Muslims based in Chicago. We will honor Arsalan Suleiman, a young person raised in our communities who filed a lawsuit on Burma because of the Rohingya genocide. We'll also honor Ambassador Rashad Hussain, raised in our communities, married in Chicago, and who is now the ambassador at large for international religious freedom. In addition, we will honor the latest commissioner of USERF, Imam Muhammad Majid, for his relentless support for Burma Task Force. Please join me. Let's come together on October 9th in Chicago. Scan this code to register or visit justiceforall.org/Chicago. Assalamu alaikum. stop this genocide, we need your help.
Welcome back. Islamophobic hate crimes in England and Wales skyrocketed last year, according to statistics revealed Thursday. Muslims were the most targeted religious minority last year, according to Home Office figures. Police recorded over 3,000 religious hate crimes targeting Muslims in the year ending in March, showing a 42% increase since last year. Hate crimes against Jewish people totaled over 1,000 during the same period, up 23% from the previous year. Jews are the second most targeted religious group. Overall, hate crimes recorded by police in England and Wales skyrocketed by 26% for the year ending in March. There were more than 155,000 hate crimes recorded, the biggest increase since the year ending in March 2017. More than two-thirds of all reported hate crimes were racially motivated. The United Nations Human Rights Council voted down a Western-led motion to debate China's genocide against Uyghurs and other Muslims in East Turkestan, also known as Xinjiang. Organization of Islamic Cooperation, or OIC countries Turkey and Albania co-sponsored the draft decision, calling for a debate on the High Commissioner's report. OIC coordinator Pakistan noted during a racism debate at the council session that the group is gravely concerned over the targeting of people on the basis of religion. Pakistan denounced anti-Islamic conduct in France, Sweden, Netherlands, Denmark, and Norway. However, it said nothing about Chinese authorities' targeting of Muslims in East Turkestan or what the Chinese government refers to as the northwestern Xinjiang region. The report details the religious profiling of Uyghurs and other Muslim minorities in Xinjiang by Chinese authorities who view them as extremists. A new Lonely Planet Guide to Great Britain features a chapter on the country's little-known Islamic heritage, dating back more than 1,200 years. Experience Great Britain is part of a range of anti-guidebooks, offering diverse experiences for visitors, according to contributor Tariq Hussain. Hussain is the author of Minarets in the Mountains, a journey into Muslim Europe, which explores the continent's indigenous Muslim cultures. The new travel guide has sections and essays titled Legacies of Empire, Bristol's Black History, and Hidden Muslim Britain. These highlight the nation's marginalized cultures and their stories. Hussain, who developed one of UK's first Muslim heritage trails, wrote the Hidden Muslim Britain section. It focuses on Liverpool, Brighton, and Woking, home to UK's first purpose-built mosque, the Shah Jahan. The world's most powerful central banks, led by the US Federal Reserve, are driving poor nations into deeper economic crisis by hiking interest rates, critics warn. On Thursday, a coalition of 140 organizations urged the International Monetary Fund to provide immediate financial relief to poor nations. These countries are reeling from climate change, COVID-19, war, and soaring costs of living. The organizations urge the UN agency's leadership to support a major new general issuance of at least $650 billion worth of debt-free special drawing rights. The coalition argued a new allocation of SDRs would be the most direct and efficient response to help countries respond to these new crises. The international reserve assets can be exchanged for dollars and other currencies. The coalition included US-based groups such as AFL-CIO and the Center for Economic and Policy Research, as well as organizations in developing nations. The World Health Organization has issued an alert over 4 cough and cold syrups made by Maiden Pharmaceuticals in India. The WHO warns that the medicine could be linked to the death of 66 children in the Gambia. Lab analysis of samples of the 4 products confirmed that they contain unacceptable amounts of diethylene glycol, ethylene glycol as contaminants, the WHO said. The agency warned the contested products could have been distributed to other countries. Haryana-based Maiden Pharmaceuticals manufactured and exported the cough syrup. The company is a repeat offender and has also lied about being WHO certified on its website, The Wire reported. Hundreds of protesters rallied in the North Caucasus region of Dagestan on September 25th against the partial mobilization announced by Russian President Vladimir Putin. Police fired shots in the air to disperse about 100 people blocking a road in the town of Enderoy. A spontaneous protest also was held in the local capital, Makhachkala. Hundreds of protesters, mostly women, chanted "No to war." Russia is seeking to bolster its military forces through conscription in an effort to step up its ongoing war against Ukraine. Dagestan's population is 83% Muslim. Habib Abdulmanapovich Nurmagomedov, a former professional mixed martial artist, is from Dagestan. The region has been fighting to stay independent of Russia for centuries. Nobel Peace Prize Take One. The 2022 Nobel Peace Prize was awarded to detained human rights activist Ales Bialyatsky of Belarus, Russia's Memorial Group, and Ukraine's Center for Civil Liberties. Bright Rice Anderson, chair of the Norwegian Nobel Committee, said that the awardees were selected because of the war in Ukraine, which has had a global effect on people all over the world. The Peace Prize laureates represented civil society in their home countries. They have for many years promoted the right to criticize power and protect the fundamental rights of citizens, the committee said. They have also made an outstanding effort to document war crimes, human rights abuses, and the abuse of power. Coming up next after the break is our in-depth analysis segment, so stay tuned and we will be right back after these messages.
Dad, they took over my bedroom. Come on, come on. Okay, Dad. 1, 2, 3. Dad! You saved me. Dad?
Are you okay?
I'm fine, dear.
Your hero needs you now, and AARP is here to help. Find the care guides you need at aarp.org/caregiving.
Billboards are popping up all over the country with an...
Our neighbors don't realize that Muslims are absolutely opposed to ISIS.
Salam. My name is Abdul Malik Mujahid. I'm an imam in Chicago.
16 shots! No peace! No justice! No peace!
So how do we bring up the energy which can really have an impact on the world? You need to build bridges of understanding among people, and we need to have America moving forward. That lesson learned have brought the strength of humanity to America, which is the diversity.
Mujahid Talks, only on Muslim Network TV. Faithfully connected.
We are Justice for All. Headquartered in the heart of downtown Chicago, Justice for All is a global humanitarian initiative dedicated to raising awareness for human rights concerns impacting vulnerable minority groups. Our diverse team of staff and volunteers, led by Imam Malik Mujahid, work tirelessly to help Justice for All achieve their goals. We promote policies that protect religious freedom, address the root causes of mass displacement, and recognize the plight of refugees and forced migrants. Together, we can continue to stand up for justice. Justice for all.
To stop this genocide, we need your help.
Welcome back. Let's take a look at our in-depth analysis segment.
Now we move to a discussion of something that impacts far too many Americans, and that is the problem of hunger in America. How many people in this country are still going hungry every day, including children, and what can our country do to address this problem, not only here, but around the world? To discuss this important topic, I'd like to bring on our guest right now, Katie Martin. Katie is the CEO of More Than Food Consulting, LLC. She is a doctor, a PhD, Dr. Martin. She's a thought leader with 25 years of experience in anti-hunger work. She's also the author of a brand new book titled Reinventing Food Banks and Pantries, New Tools to End Food Hunger. So she is the exact person we want to speak to today about this issue. Dr. Martin, thank you so much for joining us. How are you?
I'm great, and I appreciate this opportunity to speak with you and your audience.
Absolutely, absolutely. First, tell us a bit about the work that your organization does. Tell us a bit about yourself.
Thanks. So More Than Food Consulting is a brand new consulting firm, and our goal is to promote a paradigm shift in our approach to tackling the preventable problem of hunger in America, and even more broadly. And this paradigm shift is moving away from short-term transactions of distributing food to more holistic and comprehensive solutions that foster long-term food security. And I've spent my career focused on creating programs and conducting research on evidence-based programs to tackle food insecurity and to promote health and nutritious food.
That's wonderful, Dr. Martin. So let me ask you this. What is the current status of hunger in America? Can you give us an overview of what the situation looks like? The good, the bad, the progress, the backsliding? Where are we right now?
Right. So every year, the U.S. Department of Agriculture releases data on food insecurity. It's about a 1-year time lag. So they just released data this September based on food insecurity rates from 2021. Really during the height of the pandemic. And it found that food insecurity had not significantly increased or changed from the prior year, which is good news. Yet about 10% of US households struggle and worry about getting enough food for their families at the end of the week or the end of the month. And that's just unacceptable. And I would suggest that the good news of the reason why it didn't increase so dramatically during COVID was because of a lot of interventions, primarily from the federal government to increase benefits, to reduce barriers for receiving federal food assistance, other additional supports. And we'll talk about that in a minute with the White House conference. But the other thing to note that food insecurity affects communities all across the United States, but it disproportionately affects certain groups of people, predominantly single mothers with children and people of color. And we know that this isn't by accident, that there are systemic inequalities and structural inequities in our society, in our policies, and our programs that make it more difficult for certain groups of people to get ahead and have access to enough food.
So tell us about what the White House is proposing to do about some of these problems. They're having a summit today. Is this something that is going to be a positive? It's going to have a positive impact? Is it just kind of starting the conversation? Tell us about the White House summit and what you expect from that.
Well, I'm an optimist by nature, and I'm very hopeful that this White House conference will result in substantive policy change and programmatic changes that I hope it's not just talk. It's particularly exciting, I think, because this is the first time in my lifetime that we've had a White House conference. The first one was in 1969, the year that I was born, 52 years ago. It's taken that long to reconvene a White House conference. So it's critical. And the first conference in 1969 resulted in some really substantive changes. There were increases in the food stamp program and the development of the WIC program, Women, Infants, and Children, because it was recognized that there were vulnerable groups, particularly women, pregnant women, infants, and children, that would benefit from nutrition assistance. That WIC program came out of the White House conference. So I'm hopeful that there are substantive changes that will take place. The Biden administration is proposing public-private responses, so not just changes within federal food assistance programs, but also partnerships and buy-in from corporate America to make it easier for people to access and afford enough food. They are not just focused on the issue of food insecurity, but also looking at nutrition security. So making sure that nutritious food is more readily available, affordable, accessible. Also looking at activity levels. So we know that food insecurity, chronic diseases such as overweight, obesity, type 2 diabetes go hand in hand frequently. So that not only providing access to nutritious food, but also opportunities for physical activity in communities where folks are most vulnerable.
Dr. Martin, can you tell us about a little bit more about COVID? What were some of the interventions the government engaged in to help things not get worse? For example, the child tax credit. Can you tell us about what impact that may or may not have had in addressing the issue of child hunger?
Yeah, it's huge. And I appreciate you bringing that up because that's also one of the hopes from this conference is to extend that child tax credit. It's critical. And I think some of the early analysis was that by implementing and offering this child tax credit, we could cut child poverty nearly in half. That's, you can't overstate how important that is for the most vulnerable, for families with kids, to have that additional economic support to be able to make ends meet. Other initiatives that they're discussing is increasing eligibility for the SNAP program, what used to be called food stamps, the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, increasing eligibility for the Summer Food Service Program. So when school is out, families that rely on school breakfast and school lunch during the school year can access additional school meals during the summer when food insecurity often spikes. Those are just a couple examples. During COVID, there were many such bureaucratic changes that took place to make it easier for people to access food and other supports. So things like an eviction moratorium, making sure that people weren't going to be evicted if they couldn't pay their rent, pausing student loan payments, making it easier for people to save up the money that they need in order to pay for groceries, pay for other necessary expenditures. There are so many things when we think about food insecurity, it's so closely linked to poverty. And so by addressing poverty alleviation, we make it easier for people to be food secure.
Now, Dr. Martin, we've talked a lot about what government can or can't do to address this problem. What about the private sector? Anything you'd recommend there that would help address the issue of food security? And even beyond that, beyond corporations, anything that individuals, can be doing or should be doing to try to help to address this problem?
Mm-hmm. So I think We so often think that, and the government should play a big role in this. And I think part of the advocacy here is increasing the federal minimum wage, so that when people are working, they're doing their part, that they're getting a living wage to make ends meet. The corporate sector can do that on their own. We've seen that, especially during COVID. It's been more challenging for businesses to hire enough staff. And so they've done that on their own. They've said in order to attract good talent, they need to pay people more. Imagine that. We should pay people living wages, providing benefits. So often, in order to make it easier for their bottom line, corporations will often pay folks for part-time labor so that they don't have to pay for health insurance and benefits. And then those costs fall on the rest of us in society when people can't afford and access healthcare and healthy, nutritious food. So the corporate America and the private sector can pay living wages with benefits. There are other opportunities in terms of providing access and donating healthy, nutritious food to food banks and to food pantries. That's a lot of the work that I've been focused on in the last few years, is within the charitable food system of how do we make it easier for people to afford healthy food and free food as well.
Understood.
And in terms of individuals, what individuals can do, there are many opportunities to get involved in your local communities, whether that's helping to volunteer at a local food pantry. In my book, Reinventing Food Banks and Pantries, I provide lots of action steps that you can take in your community today.
Wonderful. Well, Dr. Martin, I want to thank you so much for your time and sharing this expertise with us. Anything else you want to share with us? I mean, I'll just throw this question to you. You've covered a lot of potential solutions. I think we've hit so much. I'm sure there's more. But, if there was, one thing, just one short-term thing that you think needs to get done in the near future that could really address the problem, is it the tax credit? Is there something else that can be done short-term to make a big dent in this problem? Private, public, or otherwise?
Well, not to be too pithy, but vote. Your vote matters. All of these initiatives that we're talking about that the Biden administration is proposing, most of these will need congressional approval. So the folks that you elect into the House of Representatives and into the Senate make a difference. And so ask your local politicians how they feel about food insecurity and making sure that people can access healthy, nutritious food, and then vote for those who will support these types of initiatives.
Dr. Martin, I want to thank you so much for your time today, and thank you for covering this serious and disturbing issue. It's so sad that this is a problem in America, given the wealth our country has. So we thank you for the work you've done to address it and for sharing your expertise with us today. We hope to have you back in the future to, God willing, share some positive news about progress in this fight.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Martin.
Thank you so much. That's all from our Washington studios tonight. Thank you for tuning in. You can find previous episodes and more on our YouTube or Facebook. For more content, keep watching Muslim Network TV or visit us on muslimnetwork.tv. Assalamu alaikum and good night.